As we approach Glasgow Cross, one of the city's most historic sites, our eyes are immediately drawn to the striking Tolbooth steeple. Towering above us, this 7-story structure, built in 1626 by John Boyd, is a testament to Glasgow's rich history. The steeple, adorned with a clock and a distinctive stone crown, once formed part of the larger Tolbooth building. This building was not just a mere structure. It held the town clerk's office, the council hall, and quite notably, the city prison. Speaking of the prison, it was managed in an unusual way, with inmates electing their own leader and setting their own rules, a rare phenomenon in those times. It's fascinating to think that this place, where we stand, was once a hive of social and judicial activity, dealing with matters as grave as cases involving witches, thieves, and murderers. In many cases, the punishment was execution by hanging. The area in front of the Tolbooth was known as the Plain Stains. In the 1700s, it was particularly notable as the area where the tobacco lords, the wealthy tobacco merchants of Glasgow, would parade in their finery. These merchants, known for their wealth and influence, would be seen here attired in red cloaks and sporting gold-topped canes. The Plain Stains also served as a platform for reading public proclamations. This was crucial in a time when general literacy was not widespread. As we look at the Tolbooth steeple now, standing isolated and somewhat forlorn, it's hard to imagine that it was once part of a bustling building. Sadly, the larger Tolbooth structure was demolished in 1921, a casualty of the city's march towards modernization and the efforts of the City Improvement Trust to eradicate the slums of Glasgow. However, the decision to preserve this steeple was a wise one, a site of governance, judgment, and everyday life of old Glasgow. The Tolbooth steeple is truly a bridge connecting us to the city's storied past. This is the Mercat Cross. Mercat is a Scots word for market. Market crosses like this are found all over Scotland to mark the places where markets were legally held. On top of the Mercat Cross is a unicorn, which is the national animal of Scotland. In Celtic mythology, the unicorn was a symbol of purity and innocence, as well as masculinity and power. Tales of dominance and chivalry associated with the unicorn may be why it was chosen as Scotland's national animal. These proud, untamable creatures are fiercely independent and famously difficult to capture or conquer, which will sound familiar to anyone who has read their Scottish history. Even though unicorns are mythological, Scots have always felt drawn to what they represent. According to folklore, the unicorn is the natural enemy of the lion, which is the national animal of Scotland's long-standing rival, England. This Mercat Cross is a rebuilt version of the original one, which stood in this same location. The original cross was removed in 1659. The inauguration of the new Mercat Cross in 1930 was a significant event. It was reported in the Glasgow Herald as a magnificent pageant, reminiscent of historical royal proclamations and civic celebrations. This is the Mercat building. It was built in the 1920s and has been occupied by furniture shops for most of its existence. It is currently utilized as offices and workshop, studio space with retail accommodation on the ground floor. Glasgow Cross has historically been a focal point for the city of Glasgow. It's the intersection of 5 significant streets: High Street, Gallowgate, London Road, Salt Market, and Trongate. Each of these streets carries its unique historical and cultural importance, contributing to the character and evolution of Glasgow. High Street is the oldest, and one of the most historically significant streets in Glasgow. Originally the city's main street in medieval times, it formed a direct north-south artery between the Cathedral of St. Mungo in the north to Glasgow Cross and the banks of the River Clyde. Later, it also led to the original site of the University of Glasgow. Saltmarket leads south to the River Clyde. Its name originates from its medieval function as the market for salt, an essential commodity for preserving fish from the River Clyde. Saltmarket was a bustling hub of commerce, vital to the city's food supply and trade. Just next door to the toll booth stood another impressive building, the Tontine Building. Founded in 1782, it was a place for merchants to gather and conduct business. Named after Lorenzo Tonti, an Italian who devised the method of raising funds for joint ventures, the society consisted of 107 subscribers who bought £50 shares in the society, raising £5,000 for the building. The subscribers earned a share of the profits the society made. The Tontine offered much more than just business. It boasted a hotel, a coffee room, and an assembly hall, making it a true social hub for Glasgow's elite. The Tontine building was destroyed in 1911 by a fire and replaced with the current building here. However, a few remnants survive. The famous Tontine heads, originally displayed above the building's arches, now reside in the garden at Provan's Lordship, the oldest house in Glasgow. These heads serve as a reminder of the tobacco lords who once strolled here, a symbol of Glasgow's former affluence. This building was built in 1854 for the City of Glasgow Bank. It has the Scottish baronial style. This clock tower is now part of the Tron Theatre. Originally, the clock tower was built in the 1620s as an addition to a church. The church was destroyed in a fire caused by the notorious Hellfire Club in 1793, leaving only the clock tower still standing. The clock tower is called the Tron Steeple. The steeple was incorporated into a new church by James Adams. In the 1970s, the building was taken over by the Glasgow Theatre Club and converted into a theatre. These towers, starting as mere time signalers with bells, evolved into the grand architectural icons we see today. In the early days, clock towers were practical structures, their bells chiming the time audibly across towns and cities. A vital tool before people carried watches. As timekeeping technology advanced, clock faces were added, making these towers not just audible but visible markers of time. These towers and clocks became central to community life, symbolizing stability and continuity. Even today, in an age where time is digitally omnipresent, clock towers hold a special place in our hearts. They stand as proud reminders of our past, architectural treasures that link the present to a time when the ringing of a bell or the movement of a clock hand was how we marked the passage of our days. This street, which we've been walking in for the whole tour so far, is called the Trongate. The street that is now the Trongate was one of the original 8 streets in Glasgow and was originally known as St. Thenew's Gate because it was the way to St. Thenew's Chapel. In Glasgow, the name Trongate first appeared around 1560. The Tron was the beam used to weigh goods when they entered the city walls. The Scots word gate means the way to, so the Trongate was the way to the weighing beam. This building stands a remarkable testament to Victorian entertainment, the Britannia Music Hall. Opened in 1859, this is one of the UK's oldest surviving music halls, a place where the echoes of laughter and applause seem to resonate through time. As we gaze at its facade, notice the grand Victorian architecture. Designed by Thomas Gildard and H.M. Macfarlane, the building captures the essence of an era when Glasgow's cultural scene was in full bloom. Picture lively performances, from captivating music to uproarious comedy acts. It was here that the young Stan Laurel, later of Laurel and Hardy fame, first stepped onto the stage, marking the beginning of an illustrious career. It was also one of the early buildings to become powered by electricity, and one of the first cinema venues in Scotland. Between 1750 and 1821, Glasgow's population quadrupled, largely due to Irish immigration. Initially, Irish migrants were temporary laborers for harvest work, but by the late 1700s, skilled Irish weavers, especially Presbyterians, became a notable part of Glasgow's workforce, with about 30% of weavers being Irish by 1819. In the 1830s, the migration shifted to unskilled Irish Catholics seeking regular work, contributing significantly to Glasgow's Industrial Revolution. The Great Famine, between 1846 and 1850, brought a massive influx of impoverished Irish, peaking Glasgow's Irish population at 18.2% by 1851. Post-famine, the migration slowed. Religious differences shaped settlement patterns, with Protestant Irish integrating smoothly. Irish Catholics encountered more significant challenges, largely due to opposition from some Presbyterian groups. This resistance led to the formation of distinct Irish Catholic communities centered around their growing number of Catholic churches. These migrations crucially influenced Glasgow's demographic and industrial development. This is Merchant Square. Today it is a popular drinking and dining space with many restaurants and bars, but it was originally part of Glasgow's first fruit and vegetable market, dating back to the 1800s. This market was an integral part of city life, bustling with traders and shoppers until the 1970s. Afterwards, it was in occasional use for jazz and folk music events. Let's take a look inside. Built in the 1800s, Merchant Square plays host to many different styles of events, including festivals, conference dinners, and ceilidhs, award ceremonies, and the annual Hogmanay party every year. It has a capacity of up to 2,200 guests. This street is called Candleriggs. Candleriggs was historically the area of the old city of Glasgow where candle makers worked. As the city expanded in the 1700s, it became a thriving thoroughfare, lined with tenements and businesses typical of Glasgow at that time. Like many streets in the merchant city these days, it's a popular drinking and dining location. Opened in 1841, the City Halls was designed by George Murray and features a classical style. The grandeur of its architecture reflects the civic pride and aspirations of the era. Notable architectural features include a majestic entrance, elaborate stonework, and the Grand Hall with its impressive ceiling and fine acoustics. The City Halls is the oldest purpose-built performance space in the city. Charles Dickens visited Glasgow in 1847 and gave a speech at the City Halls. He was well received at a celebratory ball. The Glasgow crowd clearly charmed Dickens, as he remarked that he'd never felt such a hearty welcome anywhere else. A decade later, in 1858, Dickens returned to Glasgow, this time to share his literary talents with the city. He delivered 2 public readings of his works, reportedly earning a handsome fee of £600 for his captivating performances. This building is now known as the Ramshorn. The Ramshorn was originally built as St. David's Parish Church in 1824, replacing a church that had stood on the site since 1720. It was designed by English architect Thomas Rickman in the Gothic Revival style. Known popularly as the Ramshorn Kirk, the church was in a wealthy and sought-after area of Glasgow at the time. As such, you will find many Glaswegians buried in the surrounding Ramshorn Cemetery, including industrialist David Dale, and tobacco merchants Andrew Buchanan and John Glassford. It reopened in 2019 as learning spaces for the University of Strathclyde. This street was originally called Back Cow Lone as it was a track for cattle. Since 1781, it has been called Ingram Street in honor of Archibald Ingram, a notable figure in the tobacco trade and Glasgow's provost in the 1760s. As he died before the American Revolution of 1776, he avoided the financial collapse that was suffered by most of his peers. This is the old Sheriff Court building. This building was a center for both municipal and judicial activities. Originating in the 1840s, its neoclassical design was built in two distinct stages. The initial construction in 1841 was soon followed by an addition between 1868 and 1871. The structure commands attention, spanning an entire city block. Initially, it became offices for the council because the toll booth was considered inadequate. The southern section of the site was developed, featuring an entrance on Wilson Street, which is right here. Let's take a look at this impressive frontage here on Wilson Street. Now, this isn't just any building, it's a wonderful example of Greek Revival architecture. Let's break down what we're seeing. The part facing us here on Wilson Street used to be where the county offices and the sheriff court were located. Now, take a look at those grand columns at the front. There are 6 of them, and in the world of architecture, we call this a hexastyle portico. These columns are designed in the Ionic style, which is just a fancy way of saying they have these scroll-like designs at the top, kind of like the fancy curls in old Greek hairstyles. The bottom part of the building, where the columns sit, might look like it's made of roughly cut stone. That's called rustication. It gives the building a sturdy, textured look, and the whole section here that the columns are sitting on is what's known as a stylobate. It gives the false impression that the building is raised above the street level. See that decorative band running along the building right above the stone base? That's a frieze, and it's got all sorts of classical figures on it, kind of like scenes from an ancient Greek story. This particular one was done by an artist named Walter Buchan. Lastly, the entrances. They're not as flashy as the rest of the frontage. Tucked into the ends of the building in what we call end pavilions, they're a bit understated. These pavilions are part of what gives the building its Greek Revival style, which is all about bringing those ancient Greek elements into a more modern world. So there you have it, a little piece of ancient Greece right here on Wilson Street. Keep your eyes peeled as we walk around. You'll notice these grand classical styles sprinkled all throughout this area. This is the Glasgow Bouquet. Merchant City's heritage is deeply rooted in the lives of its merchants and artisans. Embracing this legacy, artist Doug Cocker conceived the idea of an open-weave basket filled not with flowers, but with tools, each symbolizing the city's various trades and civic roles. This unique basket holds 10 distinct tools. 6 represent Glasgow's historic trades: a builder's chisel, a shoemaker's knife, a tailor's square, a mason's dividers, a dyer's tongs, and a baker's peel. The remaining 4 items reflect the broader societal contributions. A ship's mast and bobbin illustrate the merchant's trade, while a mace and a crozier represent the city's governance and religious institutions. Together, these tools in the basket form a mosaic of Glasgow's rich vocational and cultural tapestry. We stand before one of Glasgow's architectural and historical treasures, the Trades Hall of Glasgow. Erected in 1794 and designed by the celebrated architect Robert Adam, This splendid building you see here has been the heartbeat of Glasgow's trade and craft guilds for over 2 centuries. As we admire its elegant facade, let's delve into its storied past. This hall is the home of the Trades House of Glasgow, a unique institution established way back in the 1600s. The house played a pivotal role in shaping the city's trade and commerce, overseeing the 14 incorporated trades of Glasgow. These guilds, including bakers, barbers, weavers, metalworkers, carpenters, and many more, were the backbone of Glasgow's economic prowess. Inside these walls, the tradesmen regulated their crafts, ensuring quality and standards. But their influence went beyond mere trade. The Trades House was a beacon of support and welfare for its members, offering aid to the needy and educational opportunities for the young. The Trades Free School, founded by the house, was a testament to their commitment to education. Moreover, the Trades Hall here has been a witness to Glasgow's evolution. It's not just bricks and mortar, it's a symbol of community, camaraderie, and civic pride. The hall, with its grand hall and ornate saloon, has hosted countless gatherings, decisions, and celebrations pivotal to the city's history. This part of the old courthouse was the merchant house section. Walter Buchan also created this facade like the one on Wilson Street that we looked at. This is Hutcheson's Hall. It's a noteworthy historical and architectural landmark. Originally constructed in the early 1800s, it was commissioned by the Hutchesons' Hospital, a charitable institution established by 2 brothers, George and Thomas Hutcheson, in the 1600s. The building as it stands today, following the 1876 renovation by John Baird II, showcases a classical architectural style. Let's take a moment to look up at the steeple of Hutcheson's Hall. What you see there soaring into the sky is what's called a sharp-reeded needle spire. It's designed to remind us of the tall tower that was part of the old hospital that used to stand at the Trongate before this hall was built. Now, the style of this spire is inspired by the Baroque period. When people say Baroque, they usually mean a style that's pretty elaborate, with lots of intricate details and curves. But here's the twist. While the spire tips its hat to that Baroque style, it doesn't go all out. Instead, it's done in a really clean, simple way. No frills or fancy swirls, just a sleek, straight-up design. It's like the architect decided to give a nod to the old styles, but keep things modern and straightforward. Let's look at the main facade. It's characterized by Corinthian columns and statues of the Hutcheson brothers, adding to its grandeur. The statues were formerly part of another hospital in the 1600s that was situated in the Trongate and were incorporated into the 1800s design, linking the building's historical roots with its then modern redevelopment. Hutcheson's Hall is renowned for its beautifully decorated interiors, especially the main hall. The ornate plasterwork and elegant design make it a standout feature of the building. Historically, the hall was used for various public functions, including meetings, events, and educational purposes. Hutcheson's Hall has played a significant role in Glasgow's social and cultural life over the centuries. Though it may not be immediately apparent, this building was actually constructed as the John Street Church. Dating back to 1860, the church was erected to serve a United Presbyterian Church of Scotland congregation. In modern times, it has been occupied by a number of pubs and nightclubs. Currently, it is the Committee Room Pub. Glasgow City Chambers was built as the offices of the City Council. As we saw earlier, the previous locations of the City Council were the toll booth at Glasgow Cross, and then the Sheriff Court building on Ingram Street. The Glasgow City Chambers was built in the 1880s. The building is in the Beaux Arts style. an interpretation of Renaissance classicism incorporating Italianate styles with a vast range of ornate decoration used to express the wealth and industrial economic prosperity of Glasgow at the time. Glasgow became known as the second city of the British Empire due to its reputation as a world leader in shipbuilding during the time when the city chambers was built. We will see the front of the city chambers when we arrive there later. This building is the former Glasgow Savings Bank. Founded in 1836, the Glasgow Savings Bank grew into the country's largest savings bank. Built in the 1890s, this architectural gem was crafted to the plans of J.J. Burnett. But its story begins even earlier, with the original bank designed by his father, John Burnett, 30 years prior. Admire the Baroque-inspired design, a visual feast that encapsulates the dramatic flair and intricate details of the era, especially evident in the ornate ironwork of the main doors. Look above the doorway, where you'll find the statue of St. Mungo, Glasgow's patron saint, a symbol of the city's rich heritage. His story is a mix of historical records and local legend. Born in the year 518, Mungo showed a religious inclination from a young age, performing several miracles that became emblematic of his saintly life. These miracles are symbolically represented in Glasgow's coat of arms and include the bird that never flew. This miracle involved Mungo bringing a robin back to life that was accidentally killed by some of his teacher's disciples. The tree that never grew. According to legend, Mungo used branches from a tree to restart a holy fire that had been extinguished. The bell that never rang. Mungo is said to have brought a bell from Rome, which was used in religious ceremonies and is symbolically significant in Glasgow. The fish that never swam. This miracle involved a queen who had lost her ring and was accused of infidelity. St. Mungo sent one of his monks to fish in the River Clyde, instructing him to bring back the first fish he caught. The fish was caught, and St. Mungo extracted the ring from its mouth, thus proving the queen was innocent. St. Mungo's tomb is in Glasgow Cathedral, and his feast day is celebrated on the 13th of January. His legacy is deeply interwoven with the history and identity of Glasgow. Your eyes are naturally drawn upwards to the prominent dome, a landmark feature that once covered the bustling banking hall, echoing the vibrancy and activity of its financial past. The building was occupied by a number of banks over the years, but it was left empty in 1999 until its revival in 2002 with Emporio Armani and then with fashion chain Jigsaw. Jigsaw has since left the building, so at present it isn't being used. The building that used to stand here was the Virginia Mansion House, which was built by tobacco lord George Buchanan in 1752. Over the years, it was owned by other affluent Glasgow families, before being demolished in 1841 to be replaced by this building, which originally was a bank. It was then purchased by the courthouse commissioners to be used as a courthouse in 1964. This building is currently the Corinthian Bar, Club, and Restaurant. The building showcases a unique Free Venetian Mannerist-style facade, a testament to the eclectic architectural tastes of the time. Pay attention to the intricate use of ashlar masonry, accented by polished and unpolished red granite, and the grand central entrance that welcomes you. Inside, there are decorative schemes from the 1850s and 1870s, complete with intricate plasterwork and sculptures that tell tales of a bygone era. Corinthian Club is a symbol of transformation, from its early days as the Virginia Mansion House to its later role as a bank, then a courthouse, and now a bar and restaurant. Indian food is a popular type of food in Glasgow. Curry first arrived in Scotland in the late 1700s. In 1798, grocer John Caird placed an advertisement for real India curry powder in the Edinburgh Evening Current. Curry is now one of Scotland's most popular types of food, but when it first arrived in Scotland, curry was a delicacy too expensive for ordinary people. You may be surprised to hear that chicken tikka masala is said to have been invented in Glasgow. The dish is said to have been created by Ali Ahmed Aslam, following a complaint from a diner about the dryness of his chicken. The chef hastily prepared a sauce using various spices soaked in a tin of Campbell's condensed tomato soup, and so chicken tikka masala was born. This is the front of the Glasgow City Chambers, which houses the offices of Glasgow City Council. There are 2 grand staircases inside, one of which is made of marble. The marble staircase is made entirely from imported Italian Carrara marble. It is the biggest of its kind in Western Europe, having more marble than the Vatican in Rome. There is also a grand banqueting hall inside, where both Nelson Mandela and Sir Alex Ferguson received the Freedom of the City Award. The building is filled with impressive demonstrations of the wealth and grandeur that Glasgow maintained from its time as an affluent merchant city. When the city chambers were built, the days of dominating the tobacco trade were over, but Glasgow was still booming, with its new industries like steamship building and engineering. Glasgow had the first commercial passenger ship in Europe. It was named the Comet. The building that used to stand here during the 1800s was the Assembly Rooms. It was built in 1796 and was an immensely popular venue for dances and concerts. The Assembly Rooms was demolished in the 1890s and replaced with this current building. This building used to be the post office, which had modern developments such as the use of electricity. Before the Assembly Rooms was demolished, an arch on the building was saved and now stands at the west side of Glasgow Green. The man who saved the arch was James McLennan, which is why the arch is known as the McLennan Arch. George Square itself was laid out in 1781, named after King George III. Initially, it was an undeveloped, muddy area, not resembling the grand civic space it would later become. By the 1800s, Glasgow was thriving due to the Industrial Revolution, and George Square began to evolve into a more distinguished and central part of the city. At the heart of George Square stands an impressive 80-foot Doric column crowned by a statue of Sir Walter Scott, the celebrated Scottish novelist. Renowned for his contribution to literature, Sir Walter Scott authored numerous acclaimed novels such as Rob Roy, Ivanhoe, and The Lady of the Lake, which have left an indelible mark on Scottish culture and history. Throughout the 1800s, the square was gradually developed and beautified. Notable buildings and structures started to emerge around the square, making it a focal point of civic pride and architecture. Other important buildings around the square included the post office, built in 1878, and various banks and businesses that reflected the city's commercial importance. Another such building is this one. The Merchant House was built in 1874 and has played an important role in the commercial history of Glasgow. Historically, it served as a meeting place for merchants and traders in the city. Architecturally, the building is admired for its Victorian style, which is characteristic of many structures around George Square. It often features intricate stonework, large windows, and a grand facade, contributing to the square's overall aesthetic appeal. Inside, the building has been modernized over the years to serve various purposes, but it still retains elements of its original design and structure. It's been used for offices, meeting rooms, and other commercial purposes, reflecting the evolving nature of the city's commerce and industry. The Merchant House of Glasgow, an organization with a history dating back to the 1600s, is closely associated with this building. This organization has played a significant role in the commercial development of Glasgow and continues to support charitable activities in the city. The original merchant house was built in the Bridgegate area in 1659, where its steeple still remains today. Glasgow is currently undergoing a £115 million regeneration project called the Avenues Project. The Avenues Project aims to transform Glasgow city centre streets into attractive people-focused areas, with pedestrian and cycle priority routes. It includes features like trees, rain gardens, enhanced lighting, cycle paths, pedestrianised streets, and improved connectivity. The project will also create storage hubs for bicycles. This building is the Gallery of Modern Art, originally constructed in 1778 as the private residence of William Cunningham of Laneshaw, a prosperous tobacco lord from Glasgow. Over time, the building has served various purposes. In 1817, the Royal Bank of Scotland purchased it and then relocated to Buchanan Street. Subsequently, it transformed into the Royal Exchange. During this transition, from 1827 to 1832, architect David Hamilton led significant modifications, including the addition of Corinthian columns on the Queen Street front, a cupola on top, and a spacious hall behind the original structure. The Gallery of Modern Art opened in 1996. It has a dedicated education and access studio, facilitating workshops and artist talks, and in the basement a learning library. The building also contains a cafe, free internet access terminals, multimedia, art, and general book lending facilities. The exchange functioned as a hub where traders and businessmen congregated to trade goods like coal, iron, and sugar, and services including shipping and insurance. In 1880, it became the site of the city's inaugural telephone exchange. Paradoxically, as telephones grew more prevalent, the demand for a dedicated business exchange facility diminished. Enjoy the atmosphere as we walk around Royal Exchange Square. In front of the gallery, on the Queen Street pavement, stands an equestrian statue of the Duke of Wellington, sculpted by Carlo Marocchetti in 1844. The statue usually has a traffic cone on its head. For many years, the authorities regularly removed the cones, but they are constantly replaced by the citizens of Glasgow.